Today on the LA Food Podcast, Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Well, maybe not dead, but she sure ain't working at Noma anymore. Dear listener, by now you've probably heard that on the eve of Noma LA's residency kicking off in Silver Lake, culinary icon René Redzepi announced he would be stepping back from the restaurant. How did we get here? What does it mean? And should we trust René when he says his days at Noma are over? Karen Palmer and I discuss. In part 2, you're going to hear the full unedited press conference held by the anti-Noma protesters outside of the Paramore Estate in Silver Lake where the Noma residency is happening. Yours truly attended with producer Rob Haleblian of Taekwondo, and I may have even snuck in a pretty provocative question that got the lead organizer visibly riled up. Listen to find out what it was. In non-Noma news, we discuss recent meals at Bell's, Republique, 88 Club, and more. And in Chef's Kiss Big Miss, au revoir to one of the city's best popcorn palaces, bonjour to an impressive new California wine region, and ooh la la to some eyebrow-raising new entries to the natural food world debuted at Expo West in Anaheim. A reminder that the LA Food Podcast is part of the Acquired Taste Media Network. Be sure to listen to our sister podcast, Taekwondo with Bill Esparza. This week, Bill dropped part 3 of his 3-part guide to Mexico City, in which he covered fine dining and other travel wisdom. You're not going to want to miss it. As always, I'm your host, Luca Servodio, and without further ado, it's time to chat out. This episode of the LA Food Podcast is presented by our friends at MVA.wine. I recently sat down with Laurent Verns and Tito Malega, the people behind MVA.wine, and my first reaction was, wait, why isn't everybody doing wine like this? They treat wine the way we treat food on this show. It's all about discovery, not the obvious places, the tiny producers, the bottles you only find when someone points you in the right direction. Here's how it works. They gather at a farmhouse in Tuscany and blind taste 50 or 60 wines. Every bottle has to get a unanimous yes, and only 6 make the cut. Oh, and every time they go to Tuscany for those tastings, they bring 2 members along, all expenses paid. That could be you, dear listener. The wines that make it into the collections come from incredible producers whose bottles rarely leave their region, wines you simply can't find in stores in LA or anywhere. Membership is capped at 600 people, and for LA Food Podcast listeners, the first 20 people who sign up with code LAFood get $50 off their first collection. Go to mva.wine/subscribe and use code LAFood. That's mva.wine/subscribe, code LAFood. You can thank me later. Welcoming back to the LA Food Podcast, a woman who will not be stepping back from day-to-day operations of this pod. Karen, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
No, tell us really, how are you doing? I'm having a drink.
It's been a wild week, and I can't wait to dig into it. But yeah, ups and downs, twists and turns, just so much happening.
We were talking about this a little bit before we signed on, but you do believe that Mercury in retrograde is a thing.
I do. I mean, I'm not the type of person who reads my horoscope every day, but there are certain times where I feel like things are just getting fucked up over and over again. And you'll be like, oh, that's what it is. I don't know.
You know who probably believes Mercury in retrograde is a thing?
René Redzepi.
Yeah. I'd say if he did it before.
He might.
If he did it before, I think he does now. We got a ton to discuss today, so let's begin where we always begin, with recent eats. Karen, where have you been eating recently?
So my boyfriend and I just moved to the Miracle Mile neighborhood. We are basically, thank you, we are basically within walking distance of Republique. So actually the day we moved in, after we were just over unpacking and trying to organize things, we were like, you know what, let's just walk over there and see if they could seat us at the bar. And they did.
Yeah.
Just had honestly, I hadn't been there for dinner in years, and it's maybe one of the best meals I've had in the last 6 months. The hors d'oeuvres that they do are incredible, just everything top to bottom. The service was great. It's obviously such a beautiful room, and I'm finding now that we've been here a couple weeks, the proximity to there is a little dangerous because I've also gone and worked during the day a couple times. I mean, I've had some fun celeb sightings, and I feel like that might be the under the radar celebrity spot during the day.
which is like what makes it the real celebrity spot, because that's like
Exactly.
where
Like
they
that's where they're
actually go.
actually eating. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Don't string us along. Who you seen?
Okay. I mean, the, the best one was John Cena was having
Wow.
like breakfast or lunch there. He was like
Huge
taking
John
pictures
Cena
with me.
fan.
I mean, train wreck. Hello, love
Hmm.
him. Um, no, he was seemed very gracious. Like he was taking photos with people. Not no idea who he was eating with or anything, but or I didn't see what he actually ate. But no, he seemed like a really nice guy, and like people were kind of coming up to him a little bit. And then the other one that I saw the other day is well, I don't even know if he's on the Food Network or the Food Network anymore, but Alton Brown. Do you remember him?
Yeah. Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
I feel
Like
like did
like the
he
food
have a
science guy, right?
yes, but did he have like a bit of a scandal moment in the last few years? I feel like there was
Did
something.
did he have a Renee is what you're asking? I don't know if he did.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to go look it back. I used to love his show because, yeah, it was all about food science and like the best technique to make everything.
Did Alton
Okay,
Brown get canceled? I'm Googling this in real time.
I
Based
love
on
it.
available information as of March 2026, there are no credible reports or public announcements indicating that celebrity chef and television personality Alton Brown has cancer. Oh, that's a
Oh,
different, it's a different Google. No,
damn it, autocorrect.
what happened is his show got canceled, but I don't think it's
Oh,
because of
okay.
him.
Okay, got it.
Got
I
it.
mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Elton. Did not mean to start a rumor about you.
Sully your name. No.
Just, yeah, did not mean to sully your name. It was lovely seeing you at Republique. And yeah, he was actually my like first big name interview too, like 20 years ago. Anyway,
That's awesome.
um,
I couldn't agree
re-
more about Republique, because like we went there
mhm,
for my wife's for our anniversary just a few
mhm,
months ago, and my wife was shocked that I took her there, because the first time we went, we didn't have a great experience for no fault of the restaurant. It just wasn't a great experience, and we sat at the bar as well, and it was one of my favorite meals of 2025, and it was just a stark reminder: don't just go to the hot new restaurants, visit these
right,
restaurants that have been open for 5 to 10 years, because
totally.
they just a lot of them just get better over time.
Well, and it felt like just everything was just super dialed in, like
Yeah,
all of the dishes that we had. So yeah, I was very impressed with dinner, and obviously it has been great to go back and sit there and work during the day as well. So shout out to Republique. And then the second thing I wanted to share in terms of recent eats, had the opportunity to go up to Ojai Food and Wine this weekend, which was fantastic. The Ojai Valley Inn is just such a stunning property. So not only was it fun, like we went to kind of this Saturday night like industry party, and then the grand tasting on Sunday, which had some really awesome, names from Central Coast, some San Francisco, LA, like all over. But the thing that I thought was funny is we were there for like basically 2 nights, 3 days, whatever, and we went to Pinyon like every single day.
no,
So
every day. I thought
yeah,
the
we went
funny
like
thing was gonna be that like you guys snuck out of Ojai Valley Food and Wine, like one of the most sought after food festivals in the world, to go to Pinyon, which by itself would have been insane enough. But that you guys went every day. It's
well,
great.
yeah, because they have like incredible pizzas and sandwiches for lunch. Their pastries and breakfast sandwiches are like outstanding. And apparently, I mean, we didn't get there for dinner, but apparently they're doing like a more like a reservation, like real, not
Yes.
real, not that they're not a real restaurant, but like a reservation, sit down, table service dinner.
Yeah.
Got to get back up there for that.
Yeah, we went in January, and we were sat. It was counter service still, but you
Hmm.
could get reservations. And speaking of René Redzepi, dead ass, we sat at the bar, and there was a guy that low key looked like René Redzepi sitting next to us. And I had my wife, I was like, yo, babe, can you like lean in and see if he has a
Right.
Danish accent at all, just to see if it's him? Because I didn't want to
You're like,
stare. And she's like, I'm pretty sure he has an American accent. And lo and
that's
behold, it
so
was not
funny.
René Redzepi.
Next
But
time.
that's the kind of shit he would have done,
He's got
right? Like go to
he's got
Ojai.
some he's got some free time now, I think. So might see him up there.
Renee, if you're
Sorry.
looking for recommendations, we got you, bro. We got
Yeah,
you.
we got you.
You got one more?
Yeah, so still exploring the new neighborhood, finding, like regular spots to go to. And last night we went to this very cute Italian restaurant called De La Terra, which is up near the Grove. It's on Beverly. It's up near the Grove. Just like, solid, like pretty standard, like I said, neighborhood Italian fare. But they do a Martini Wednesdays where the martinis are 10 American dollars. So for my martini girls out there, I mean, it's kind of a steal. And it's any martini you want. Like, it doesn't have to be, one of their like house drinks or whatever.
That is amazing. And you know who does the same thing? It's Queens here in Eagle Rock. So
Oh, okay. Nice.
not on Wednesdays. They do Martini Mondays, which, you'd
Hmm.
expect. And I think they also do $10 martinis every day before 6 p.m. or something.
I mean, it's really a steal
It's honestly
in
like,
this day and age. So
exactly. It's not just that, it's a mitzvah. With everything going on, it's like God's
exactly.
work, letting us have
Exactly.
martinis on the cheap. I
Totally.
say, I
Totally.
say as I sip on my peach White Claw.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I've been eating, not Noma, believe it or not, but I did eat finally at 88 Club, Maylin's spot in
Hmm.
Beverly Hills. I've
Yep.
been meaning to go for a while. I was very excited at the outset because I've always been a big fan of May's. Not that I know her like that, but always been a big fan of her work. I obviously was a little turned off by the fact that Bill Addison reviewed it in I'd say a pretty scathing manner as far as like Bill Addison goes.
Yes, he doesn't usually do highly negative reviews. So yeah, it felt
Yeah.
more negative than usual for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't, I would, I was kind of like, look, Bill's always looking for, things that are pushing the envelope in some way, shape, or form, or like adding to LA's dining scene in a big monumental way. So maybe it's just good food, but doesn't like, really move the needle at all. And that would be fine. So I went, I have to say, that's kind of what it was. It was good food
Hmm.
that didn't necessarily move the needle in a way that was earth shaking to me. I think the downside of it is because of the real estate and like the market they're going for, it's quite expensive. So
Right.
I can see people going there and being like, kind of having the same problem Cato had in the early days when people would go to Cato expecting like Taiwanese food, getting like elevated Taiwanese food, and then being like, oh, I can get the same dish in the SGV for much, much less money, or a similar dish, not really understanding the nuance of like the perspective and what went into what John was doing. So I think they could suffer a little bit from that kind of Cato syndrome, early Cato syndrome. Not to say like it's on the Cato level. I don't think it is. I don't think it's meant to be. But there were a
Hmm.
couple dishes I really enjoyed. They did this like sweet and sour fish that was like filleted in such a way that it was fried and it came out looking like a little bit of a flower where you could just pick
Oh,
off
that's
the
cool.
individual pieces. Not
Hmm.
not unlike one of the great inventions of culinary America, the bloomin' onion. Have you had it?
Exactly. I have had a bloomin' onion in my day. Yes, I have.
Yeah. I mean, one of the great feats of society, I would argue. So,
Totally.
super fun dish. So I really enjoyed that. And then I went to Bell's in Los Alamos,
Woo!
which
Love bells.
it was Saul and Emily recently got married. So as a gift, we wanted to like take them somewhere. So we got them a night at the Skyview Motel up there in Los Alamos, which
Yep.
is a nice motel. We didn't just like we're not just like cheap ass friends that just got them like a motel stay. Like this is a nice like
No, it's very cute.
boutique hotel, yeah. And
It's a
we booked
bougie. It's a
dinner.
bougie motel. It's a bougie
Yeah,
motel.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like a motel only ironically, like
Exactly.
it's very much a
In
boutique
name
hotel.
only. Yes,
Yes.
for sure.
And then we had dinner at Bell's. I went to Bell's in 2023, but this was my first time since then. And I'm going for a run on Saturday morning. Dinner Saturday night, and I'm like, who do I know that's been to Bell's many many times that knows Los Alamos like the back of her hand? It's Karen Palmer. So I shot you
This
a
guy.
text. Yeah, asking you for Rex. I'm ashamed to say we didn't make it to any of your other Rex because we had quite
That's
the
all
wine
right.
tasting afternoon, if you know what I mean.
It
And
happens. Yeah,
it
it
does.
happens
We
up
got
there.
we got lost in the sauce, and then we went to Bell's and had a fantastic experience. It was honestly like so much better than I even remembered. I think just now I've had a bunch of tasting menus, and I really appreciated that this was not a tasting menu; it was a prefix, and there's a huge difference there.
Totally.
And the way that they course it out too, I read the menu and I was like, I'm still going to be fucking hungry after this. I was not. It was perfectly
Hmm.
coursed, super satisfying. We did it in a way where like everybody at the table tried to order something different for the courses that you could select. So we basically got to try
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
Ironically, the standout dish for me was a gift they sent from the kitchen, either because you worked your magic or because Saul and Emily were celebrating. So either way, kudos to them and thank you to them. But it was this chilled fennel soup. And
Mm-hmm.
I, I wouldn't think twice about it usually, but that was incredible. So rich, like a distillation of fennel flavor with just the most incredible quality olive oil that like left that peppery kick in the back of your throat in a way that was just so pleasant, so like, Moorish. That was ironically to me one of the dishes of the night. So, but just kind of
Love it.
emblematic of
And
the
I
food at
mean
Bells
that
overall.
the green salad is
Yeah.
like perfection. It's
Yeah.
like it's so simple, but like I don't know. I could eat that every day and like not get tired of it.
Yeah, I
So good.
agree. And for entree, I got the nettle risotto, which like risotto,
Hmm.
many chefs have died on Top Chef because of risotto. It's a hard
True.
thing to
It's
do.
true.
So I gotta say I was pretty impressed with their risotto technique. And nettles is always fun, really well cooked mushrooms on top. So
We love to hear it.
yes, we love to hear it. Well, pretty epic recent eats. Now we got to move on to the big deal of the day. And Karen, I got
Pain.
bad news. I got bad news and good news for you. Okay,
Hmm.
the
Lay it
bad
on me.
news. The bad news is we're gonna skip our trademark "What Karen's been working on lately" segment. And the
That's
good
okay.
news is you also worked on this. So we're really going to be talking about what everyone's
It's
been working on lately.
what everyone's been working on this week. Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
That is, that is, dear listener, of course, the escalation of the Noma scandal as the $15 a head, 15, I wish, $1,500 a head pop up prepared to kick off in Silver Lake this week that ultimately led to René Redzepi announcing that he would be stepping away from Noma's day-to-day operations. Karen, bear with me. I'm going to give a quick timeline of events before we get into our discussion. But for listeners who have been living under a rock, there have been conversations swirling. As you know, we've talked about them on this podcast of past abuse in the Noma kitchen. There's been this campaign led by this guy, Jason Ignacio White, on Instagram. He goes by Microbes Vibes on Instagram. But what really supercharged the conversation to the next level was Julia Moskin's bombshell New York Times article on René Redzepi's culture of abuse at Noma, corroborated by more than 35 sources. The story got immediate traction and it told pretty harrowing stories, which, we might get into later. Maybe we won't, maybe we will. 1 hour before the story dropped, René himself issued an apology on Instagram. It's the first time that he addressed the resurfacing of the situation since Microbes Vibes on Instagram began his digital campaign a few weeks ago. And the apology basically said, yeah, that sounds like me. Don't really remember the exact incidents, but my bad. I'm sorry. I promise you things have changed at Nova since then. And that was that. Fast forward to Monday, and Kristen Hawley of Expedite on Substack breaks the news that American Express was stepping away from its planned involvement in Noma's LA residency, which was followed on Tuesday by Ben Leventhal's Blackbird doing the same. Then on Wednesday, that was the day that the residency was going to get started. And in the morning, protesters led by Microbes Vibes, also known as Jason Ignacio White, held a protest and a press conference outside of the estate where the residency was happening. And here's what they demanded. They read a letter, and here's what they demanded. One, immediate dialogue with René. They wanted to speak with him within 24 hours. Two, leadership change at Noma. Three, reparations for harmed workers. And four, accountability for alleged abuse and violence. One Fair Wage is the nonprofit that helped them organize this campaign, and they added to the list of demands, not for like immediately, but for a long-term campaign, $30 per hour minimum wage in Los Angeles. That's what they were asking for. Wednesday didn't stop there. What it culminated in was René's announcement at 5:46 p.m. The press release hit my inbox that he would be stepping away. This is what he said. The recent weeks have brought attention to important conversations about our restaurant industry and my past leadership. I have worked to be a better leader, and Noma has taken big steps to transform the culture over many years. I recognize these changes do not repair the past. An apology is not enough. I take responsibility for my own actions. And then the bombshell. After more than 2 decades of building and leading this restaurant, I've decided to step away and allow our extraordinary leaders to now guide the restaurant into its next chapter. I've also resigned from the board of MAD, the nonprofit organization I founded in 2011. Now, around the exact same time, this is the last part of the story, I promise, René and Noma posted a highly produced video of René addressing the Noma LA team, explaining that he had become a distraction and would be stepping away. While the video received some support, it also created some confusion, with René using less apologetic and softer language than his statement, leaving many to question, is he actually done at Noma? Is he actually sorry for the right reasons? Or is this just the Noma spin machine at work? Karen, where do we even begin?
I don't know. What a week, man.
What a week. That's why I'm drinking. I don't know what René's doing, but what was your reaction when you heard that René would be stepping down? I think we were in the middle of texting like to organize this podcast.
Yeah, we were. It basically, like you said, broke, after 5:00 yesterday. I was surprised, but I also kind of felt like at this point he had no choice. So I was like, there's been so much pressure, so much obviously press between the New York Times and then people, spinning off and writing their own things about it. And I think like what's interesting is, not to get totally off topic, but like you said, there have been allegations in the past. These are not like these are not new allegations. But I think what was so shocking about the New York Times article was just the detail and the this isn't just, and not that this is even acceptable. It's not just yelling at people. This is like psychological and like serious, like physical abuse. And it's just, I think like reading these firsthand accounts was just really, really shocking and upsetting. And, the fact that this was allowed to go on for so long is just, unacceptable. So again, I kind of feel like he didn't really have a choice at this point, especially with like the protests and like just everything.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was shocked when he announced he was stepping back because I was at the protest. And honestly, like I've been to many protests in my life. This was one of the smallest protests I've ever been to. There were approximately 20 people there. It was a lot of times these days, protests are highly produced. Like, you got big banners, you got, sound effects, you got like musical acts. They had pots and pans, which, on brand with the fact that this is a protest against an abusive kitchen. But like, this was not like the Women's March, So my feeling walking away from that press conference and that protest was, good start. This is going to need to pick up significant steam before we see change. So I was pretty shocked, I will say. The one moment during the week where I thought, this is interesting, was American Express pulling its support.
Yeah. And Blackbird. I mean, like those are two huge sponsors. So I don't know what that means, not my problem, but financially for the Noma team here. But yeah, that was very surprising. But I think it's like, even though this is quote unquote in the past, according to René and his people, does a big brand want to be associated with that level of, abuse and mistreatment of the team? So shocking, but also not shocking in a way.
No, I mean, I think what makes this time different is the fact that I talked to some people, they think coming to LA was a big mistake. Like, because, this man is kind of a saint in Denmark. He's been knighted by the royal family there. This has become a major scandal in Denmark because they're seeing one of their like big national heroes kind of fall on his sword. But, in America, we operate by different rules here. Nobody.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, nobody gets really a pass these days when it comes to like this kind of scrutiny. So I think what happened is like the fact that he's in LA was like a hook for people to like look into this again. And what Jason Ignacio White did is he acted as a bit of a catalyst for someone to like look into this closer. And obviously, like for American Express, I'm putting myself in the shoes of their like crisis PR team, which I've been in those shoes. That New York Times article, like just,
not a good look to be associated with. Yeah, and yes, I think to your point, like here in California, we also like demand a lot of businesses and paying people fairly, and even like stepping away from the abuse allegations, but like all the things about unpaid labor and, with these interns that like would save up for years and drop everything to go work there unpaid for a few months because it could open doors for them, and then also to be potentially, emotionally or psychologically or physically abused after. I mean, the whole thing is just like, ugh, it's just,
No. And you're still seeing people post online being like, "Chef, it was a tough job. Yeah, I got punched in the stomach a couple times, but it made me a man," like that kind
right.
of stuff.
I actually saw something from a chef today who was like saying that, everything he's built, and I think his restaurant's in Kyoto, but yeah, it was like, I'm a better person and a better chef for having worked with Renee, and sending you all my love and support. And that's been a little surprising too. It's like seeing some of the both local and international chefs like commenting or supporting Renee. And it's like, it's a tough line to walk, right? Like, do people have to pay for their past for the rest of their lives? No, but like,
Yeah.
it seems like people were like very quick to forgive without even like maybe having read the New York Times piece. You know what I mean? So it's
Yes.
like, I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah. I know that Justin Pichetrungzi of Anajac caught some flack for throwing some hearts on Renee's initial apology, so I get it. It's tough. When you know somebody personally, it's sometimes hard to square like who you know them as with their past
Hmm.
behavior. And I agree that people
Exactly.
deserve grace and deserve second chances. I mean, not always. Like, sometimes we just need to send motherfuckers to jail and that be it. But like
Sure.
th-
Absolutely.
a lot of times people deserve second chances, but it doesn't mean that they deserve to continue being in the positions of power that they hold and being
Exactly.
lionized to the degree that they are. And I think that's the distinction, right? Which gets lost a lot. And yeah, both things can be true. People can have learned stuff at Noma that was valuable and that they brought into them for the future of their professions. And it can be a horrifically abusive environment that scarred people permanently forever. That can also be true.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
it,
Both things can exist at the same time for sure.
yeah. However, as always, we love to categorize these things as black and white. So, it is what it is.
Right.
Now, oh, go for it.
I was just going to say, can we talk about posting the resignation video to his team?
Jesus fucking Christ. I honestly like when that email came
Oh,
through, that first of all, honored to get the press release from Noma. I should say this. I reached out to them for comment because I knew that we were going to be airing the opinions of the protesters on this podcast because they agreed to invite me to the press conference and whatnot. I wanted to be fair and give the Noma team a chance to respond as well. Obviously, they had bigger fish to fry, but they did send me their press release. So that's what we read here today, dear listener, in the interest of fair and balanced coverage. Now, the
yes.
thing with the video is if he just resigned yesterday, obviously he took a lot of L's during this entire time, but I'm calling that like a little bit of a dub. Like he did the right thing. Like he's walking away, he's given up space. He's going to apologize. He's going to make things right. The video to me undermined everything so hardcore. It kind of made things even worse.
Yeah, no, it felt very self-serving and just meant
Yeah.
to kind of garner sympathy. And look, I do feel bad for his team that's here and has to like carry on and still produce I mean, this is obviously not the experience that they were expecting or hoping for. But yeah, it's just like, I mean, to show these like tearful faces, it just,
Well,
yeah, the whole
well,
thing. And it's
kind of
like, it's all
tearful.
about him, like kind of tear. Yeah. But no, it's like it just felt more about him than it did
Yeah.
about, you know, the team having to go on. I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing, it definitely like undermined the resignation for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, it undermined it for three reasons, in my opinion. One, like it was just kind of like this is so emotionally manipulative with showing the crying
Hmm.
faces that you're kind of like, ugh, this gives me an icky feeling that maybe what they're doing isn't for the right reasons. Then he goes on to like couch his apology in basically like he's not apologizing to the victims. He's not apologizing to the
No,
people
no,
that
no,
have been
no, not
hurt.
at all.
He's
No,
apologizing to his team for being a distraction, which is
right.
very different. And then finally, he's saying like, I'm gonna step away, but nothing about him saying he's stepping away in that video sounded definitive at all. So
No, because he even said something like, "You'll still see me, but not in the same
yeah,
way." You know, like so. It's like, yeah. So what exactly is your role going to be moving forward? And like, yeah, it doesn't add to like taking accountability at all.
no,
It
no.
just I was at that actually, yeah. To me, posting that video was more shocking than his actual resignation. But
I mean,
you know,
also, like, they've been allowing comments on a lot of their posts. I thought it was interesting that they limited comments on that post. They were kind of
right,
like, we want to have the final word. This is the final word.
right,
So the
right.
thing about that is it's not the final word because the protesters are still protesting because while Renee has stepped away, all of their demands have not been met. Now, they want reparations, they want bigger changes within Noma and broader changes in the industry. So this is not the end of the conversation. Do you think any of their other demands are likely to be met?
I unfortunately kind of doubt it. I mean, like if it took him this long to kind of like take even the smallest bit of accountability on this whole thing. I mean, I unfortunately don't see like reparations coming to the victims, but like I do think it's important to acknowledge too, which has been part of the conversation, is this is not just a Noma problem. Like this kind of behavior has been widespread in fine dining for a long time and still does happen. And like, I think unfortunately, one of the things that the New York Times piece pointed out too is like, people have come out of Noma and gone on to be like bullies themselves because
For
that's the
sure.
system that they were used to. So it's like, I think too, we need to like just address that this is, yeah, not one singular place, but a lot of changes need to be made within the industry. And we like, obviously, I hope that happens, but I don't think it's something that's going to happen overnight or, you know, this one protest or one group. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a systemic problem. So
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like one question I had going into, the press conference was, haven't we already kind of done this? Like back in
mhm,
around the Me Too movement with,
right.
Batali falling and other people like that. There was a huge reckoning around like abusive culture in the kitchen, not just sexual abuse like that Mario Batali was doing at his like weird little spotted pig haunt or whatever, but like in general, like abuse in the kitchen, a lot of people went down. I mean, I could rattle off names here. This felt like situations have already been getting better in the kitchen. Whenever I interview
Mhm,
chefs, whenever I interview people, one of the themes that is very consistent is that things today are a lot better than how they were
right.
in the past. Not perfect by any means, but there have been real changes made. I think that the really like interesting domino to fall here could be the question about labor to your point. And
Mhm,
is fine dining on the level of Noma even possible without the financial systems that made Noma happen? Like all of the
right.
unpaid stagiaires, the fact that people were willing to live on a basically like in extreme poverty to go and work at these restaurants. That to me is what could change here, is like that
Yeah,
discussion. And that's a tension
totally.
that kept coming up at the press conference too. I believe it was the Times of London reporter who asks, these 1%, 0.1% of restaurants, is it sustainable? It's a good question.
It is a good question. And yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that's something that will change overnight, but hopefully it is something that will change.
I've seen some people already lamenting this, being like, "Oh, now like the kitchens that are hard places to work will suffer because the abusive kitchens are like doing bad work," right? And I'm just like, I kind of think that's a ridiculous argument because it's like nobody's saying that. We just want things to work. And I think it should be said like I don't think there's any food in the world that is worth these conditions. Like if it
No,
means there will never be another restaurant as good as Noma, I'm fine with that. Like I'm fine if like we peak with like I don't know, Cato's, right? Like Cato level dining, I'm fine with that. I don't need more than that? There may be a recalibration of what we consider excellence as well.
right. Yeah, which is fine. And also there's the question of like, is Noma actually good? That's
Right.
a whole other.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
Hey, kudos
But
to
yeah,
us. We haven't even said the words reindeer penis yet. So that's
I mean, there you go. You did it.
if you were playing
Not
the
yet.
reindeer penis drinking game at home, dear listener, now's your time to take your shot.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's our word of the day.
yeah, yeah. Shout out Andy
Oh, love it.
Cohen. Yeah.
Exactly.
One other element I wanted to talk about here is the fact that, as always happens with these protests, people start coming after the main organizer. And that's been happening with
Hmm.
Jason Ignacio White. People have been coming out of the woodwork saying that from like all kinds of shit, right? They've been saying like, oh, he got divorced and doesn't pay his child support, or he got arrested when he was a teenager. And then, which to me sound a little more frivolous, but again, I don't know the details. But then there are other ones that are like, oh, well, he was in a leadership position at Noma for multiple years. And some people say he was actually complicit in this culture of abuse, which seems like a more serious allegation. What do you make of that tension of like, casting doubt on the person?
I mean, I feel like unfortunately, like that's kind of what happens when people speak out in these situations. Like, especially if you're like going after a powerful person, then like, and I'm not saying this is like Renee's team doing this, but like, supporters of his or fans of his are inevitably going to kind of like try to dig up some dirt just to like discount this. I mean, I am curious to hear more about his time at Noma and what his behavior was there, but also like, you know, I give him a lot of credit for being sort of this social media whistleblower and compiling all of these stories and just saying like this is not okay and we need to change it. So like I don't think his past is irrelevant, but like I do being the person who really leads the charge on these things is difficult. So I give him a lot of credit for
Yeah.
that.
I kind of think it is irrelevant, honestly. Like, think about it this way.
Really?
Like, yeah, yeah. Cause like, if there's a prison informant that's like, oh, this person told me that they like, did murder that person. We're not like, yeah, mate, but you yourself did some. No, like we kind of like tend to believe that prison informant no matter what they did. I mean, if they've proven themselves to be like a semi trustworthy person. I think it's just like you don't have to be a perfect person to whistleblow. And I kind of think that that's an unrealistic standard to set for anybody. It actually would. I think what it actually ends up doing is it kind of ends up encouraging people to never speak out because they're like,
No,
what?
totally. That's yeah. That's unfortunately the result of it, right?
Yeah, it's like if I speak out, they might like bring up that one time where I did X, Y, Z, right? And that's like not exactly the world I want to live in. So I think
Yeah.
that actually, I think it's a very dangerous thing to do to start being like examining this guy's character. I think it's okay to ask questions.
But here's the thing, like yes, I agree in that like I don't think his personal life should have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Like whether it's child support, like getting arrested when he was like that kind of stuff is completely irrelevant. But like again, I am a little curious to hear about
Totally,
his time at Noma and like I don't, hopefully he didn't perpetuate
for
that level,
sure.
that abuse or kind of like the treatment that people were getting. But no, I admire him a lot and I hate that this happens when people
Yeah.
step forward, it's like it's
Well,
terrible.
yeah, but I'm
So
also kind of like, if he was part of that like culture of abuse, cool. Then let's investigate that too, and then let's make sure he is held accountable as well. But
right.
we don't need to like throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
No, totally. I agree with you.
So if you're one of those people who are like, I don't know about this Jason guy, okay, that's fair. But we don't need to crucify him. Last thing I wanted to ask you is a couple other things on this topic. It's just so rich and meaty, and I'm committed to not discussing this anymore after this week because I feel like it's just taken up way too much airtime. Actually, I had a person I really respect in the food world DM me saying the thing that pisses me off most about this is how like the entire food media world spends weeks talking about the bad actions of one white
What
guy, like,
right.
which I completely feel and I completely hear you on, but it is the biggest story of the day and it's so LA related, so we had to talk about it. But obviously these dinners are still happening, right? And people have paid
Hmm.
good money to go and they're going to be going, they're going to be posting on social media. How should we feel about that? should we be like, shaming those people? Should we be doxing them? Should we just like accept that they can spend their money however they wish?
That's a tough question. I mean, like, I feel like, 95% of the people going had like no idea about these, allegations beforehand. I mean, they might have read some of the stuff where he apologized before, but like, I don't know that they should necessarily be held accountable for his actions. I mean, like, personally, if I had bought a ticket and all this stuff came out, would I go? I don't know, but I also don't know that they can like get refunded. So like, I don't know. You spent $1,500 on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, look,
It's a tough call.
I kind of agree. People have saved up to do this, and they're like celebrating their special occasions and whatnot. Like, yeah, it's shit. If you bought tickets to a Diddy concert as your special occasion thing, it's not exactly the same thing, but like, probably still judge you if you went, But this is a little bit different because Noma can exist without René.
Right,
the show
exactly.
can't really go on without
And they
Diddy.
they are basically going without René.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he'll be like milling about the dining room, but I kind of doubt it.
I don't think so. I think he's going to be on a beach in the Cayman Islands. I'm going to say like, if you're going, more power to you. I'd actually be interested in hearing how it is. If any of our listeners are going and want to do an anonymous interview with the podcast, I'd be happy to have you on. Last question on this though, Karen. If you were offered a free ticket, would you go?
No, I would not.
Not
go.
even for investigative journalism purposes?
I guess, but like if it was just me personally, like with no ties to my job, like no, I wouldn't go. First of all, I've never been interested in going to Noma. It doesn't appeal to me, and the style of food or like this, the manipulation of ingredients. I'm just like, this just doesn't sound very enjoyable to me. So given that plus all this other shit, like, no, I wouldn't go. Would you go?
Yeah. I'm going to say, honestly, for like investigative journalist, well, I'm not a journalist, but for just like curiosity and for reporting back to my people who are the listeners of this podcast, I would probably go, honestly. I especially now that René has gotten some comeuppance, I'd feel better about it. I don't know. This thing is happening. It's an important cultural moment. I wouldn't feel great about it, but like, I feel like I'd be taking one for the team,
That's so brave. You're so brave.
Hey, nobody can accuse me of not being honest on this podcast, okay?
That's true. And that's the thing. Like, I have a friend who went to Noma, like, in Copenhagen last year and said it was, like, one of the worst meals she's ever had.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, it's just not that interesting to me.
No, it's not interesting to me. If
Noma.
anything, I would just like really love the opportunity to talk shit about how they just ruined cactus in like 14 different ways.
Exactly.
Anyways.
Cactus 12 ways.
Cactus
with the side
12
of
ways. There's your second drink, dear listener.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's enough Noma for ever. Well, in part 2, actually, dear listener, you do have the entire press conference to listen to. If you choose, that is your mission. But to end this podcast, or at least this segment, on a slightly brighter note, Karen, are you down for a rapid round of Chef's Kiss Big Miss?
You know it. Let's do it.
All right. LA Times critic Jen Harris laments that the intensely cheesy bright orange popcorn served at iPic theaters has become her favorite snack and may soon disappear. The chain plans to close its 2 SoCal locations in Pasadena and Westwood on April 28th, threatening the availability of the popcorn she considers unmatched by alternatives like AMC. Harris is now racing to eat as many buckets as possible and even experimenting with recreating it at home before the theaters shut down. Karen, iPic movie theater popcorn, Chef's Kiss Big Miss.
Well, I've never had it, but now I feel like I have to go try it. No, I think the big miss is the fact that movie theaters keep closing. I mean, this is such a bummer. I mean, bring back the dome. Come on. No, I mean, like, if that's the popcorn she loves, that's the popcorn she loves. Chef's Kiss,
Yeah,
But I've never tried it. Have you had it?
No, I haven't. I probably won't because we're an AMC family. Just so
Got it.
probably won't make it to iPick before it closes. But I agree with you. The big miss here is the loss of the American movie theater, which let's bring it back, people. Let's bring it back. Moving on, the New York Times' Eric Asimov says the next California wine region to know is the San Luis Obispo coast, where a small group of winemakers are producing fresh, salty maritime wines that feel very un-Napa in the best possible way. Producers like Scar of the Sea, Outward Wines, Do Nights Wine Company, and Phelan Farm are leaning into regenerative farming, minimal intervention winemaking, and weird grapes that actually make sense for the foggy coastline. Translation for our listeners, it's California wine, but with actual acidity, salinity, and personality, basically the anti-Butterbomb Chardonnay. Karen, San Luis Obispo wine country, chef's kiss, big miss.
I mean, I can't say I'm super familiar with the wines or familiar with the wines at all, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Napa Chard or the big cabs. I'm gonna say chef's kiss. Also, I mean, maybe the slow area is having a bit of a renaissance because like Jeremy Fox is heading up there.
Yes.
Maybe that's the next travel destination.
Maybe we'll need to do an LA Food Pod travel episode there. The only reason I'm gonna give this a big miss is because your boy has been drinking wine in San Luis Obispo for the better part of 10 years. Like, okay. I did.
And you're like, it's not that good.
No. It's actually like, I mean, look, I love our buddies over at MVA.wine, but like, I'm not like the biggest wine connoisseur. I am an enthusiastic wine drinker, however, and I love a wine tasting. That's actually what we were doing in Los Alamos and why I didn't visit your other recommendations. But like, I've been to amazing wineries in San Luis Obispo, again, for the better part of 10 years. So your issue is more that he's like calling it now. Like, yes. This has been happening. Got it. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's
where
fair.
He's like, do you remember when the New York Times came to LA and was like, oh, let me take you to Highland Park for a week? And they just
exactly. Yeah. Or like Silver Lake. Ooh, have you guys heard of this neighborhood?
Yeah. How do I pronounce it? Is it Skirl? Yeah, no, it's
Exactly.
It's kind of like that. So I'm just
that's
get
fair.
on board, Eric. Okay.
Yeah, I get
next
it.
One, and this is one of my favorite ones, actually. Progressive Grocer reports on Natural Products Expo West, the massive Anaheim convention where the wellness industrial complex goes to multiply, which showcased thousands of products, but the big themes were protein in everything, gut health everything, and beverages promising enlightenment. Think probiotic fruit snacks like Nature's Garden probiotic yogis, adaptogenic drinks with lion's mane like Trip Mindful Blend, chicken breast protein crackers, and perhaps the most 2026 product of them all, Chad and Barney's pasta sauce, claiming 80 grams of protein per jar. Karen, protein pasta sauce. Chef's kiss or big miss?
Oh my God. So I also went to Expo West and wrote about it. And I went
Sorry for using Progressive Grocer.
That's okay. It's fine, Luca. No, it is, first of all, just going there, it's the most overwhelming, just like shit show of, I mean, it is very well organized and well run, but just like, it's so big and so overwhelming. But it's funny because I spent most of my time in what they call like the hot products area to see if I was like, could scope out some new brands or like what was going on. And yes, there was protein in everything.
Jesus.
Every single product. It was like protein soda, protein dessert balls, it was wild. So anyway, long way of saying I'm going to give it a big miss just because it's like, I don't know, how much protein do we need? Do we need that pasta sauce? I don't think so. I
mean, I have a theory that like, how like if you take vitamin pills, they say like it's completely wasted, like you just piss them out because your body doesn't like absorb them that way. I have a theory, same thing with protein. Like these unnatural ways of like doing protein ain't gonna work, people. Like if you want to get your protein intake, go back to your eggs, go back to your chicken, go back to your lentils, whatever it is. But like pasta sauce,
rip through some chicken breasts, come on.
Oh, come on. There was a guy on Love is Blind who used to blend up his chicken breasts. That's the kind of, disgusting, but dedication. Okay?
Dedication, for sure. Yeah,
All right,
big miss.
last one for you. Big miss. We're completely aligned there. Last one for you. The New York Times reportedly fired software engineer Nazli Samadzadeh after determining her role as a worker owner at Gourmet magazine created a conflict of interest. Samadzadeh framed the move as both ironic and flattering, noting the scrappy upstart publication apparently worried the 11 million subscriber Grey Lady enough to show her the door. Translation: in the increasingly spicy world of food media, even side hustles can get you 86th. Karen, New York Times firing Nosley for Gourmet magazine. Chef's kiss, big miss.
I mean, I'm going to say it's a big miss in the sense that, like, I'm curious to know, like, what the new Gourmet's numbers even are. Like, is this really a conflict of interest? But I do think it's a chef's kiss that, like you said, this kind of like scrappy upstart, like, made the Grey Lady all flustered and they had to fire, it's unfortunate. I obviously I don't think this person should have lost their job, but, like, I don't know. It's a little wild.
It's a little wild. It's
like apples to oranges.
It's giving insecure. It's giving insecure.
It totally is giving insecure. I love it.
Yeah. Karen, you've won the game. Congratulations, and you've
Yay!
also won the Noma game as well. Renee lost
the Noma
obviously.
Marathon. I feel like
the Noma Files.
It's been the Noma Marathon this week. It's crazy.
I do have 2 shitty Yelp reviews this week. And
Ooh.
Do you want to start with the fun one or the not so fun one?
Let's start with the not so fun one.
Okay, starting with the not so fun one. So, as you know, every media outlet in the planet has been covering the situation at Noma for weeks now. For weeks. Mm-hmm. There's been one notable absence, and that notable absence has been LA Taco. LA Taco has not been covering what has been happening at Noma until yesterday. There was a reporter from LA Taco who showed up at the press conference, and they have since reported about it. But up until that point, LA Taco had been extremely mum on the situation, which is pretty interesting given that Javier Cabral recently spoke on a podcast for René Redzepi's Mad. And I've heard that he has a relationship with Noma, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think it's a little interesting that a publication that does so much good work under the guise of independent journalism decided to sit this one out. And I'm glad to see that they're reporting on it now, but I just feel like it needed to be said. So shitty Yelp review for them.
Yeah, it's an unusual choice.
It is an unusual choice. I'm not going to make you speak on it because I'm happy to be the one picking the fights. And then last one for you. This one is a little bit more fun, but not so fun for me, okay? Because at Bell's, we were there with Saul and Emily, okay? And somehow my appearance got brought up, and it was brought to my attention that by them that I need not just Botox, but also Rogaine, which I thought was not exactly fantastically polite dinner conversation. So I would just like to give them, I'm going to say a 5-star review for that particular dinner conversation. So that is my public shaming of them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, nobody wants to hear that.
Oh, come on now. Not while I'm enjoying
Luca,
this
like, if we're going to be honest, no, I'm kidding.
I thought we're having an intervention right now.
Yeah. I'm like, I spoke to your wife, and no,
yeah, your hymns packages are on the way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's inappropriate dinner conversation.
Jesus Christ.
No one
By the way,
that.
Hymns, if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast,
exactly, we're here for you. Or just sending us some free product. I mean, we'll take it.
Yeah,
Hymns and hers. We're here for
all of your services. We'll take them. We'll take them. Karen, great job as always. We'll be back right after the break with the press conference of the Noma protesters.
Thank you.
I'm Jason White, a scientist and ex-director of fermentation at Restaurant Noma. Today, with my peers, I'm standing against the systems that failed to protect us in restaurants, and against the abusers who created cycles of abuse that many people I know have suffered from. We are presenting this demand letter on behalf of our countless peers who have experienced abuse at the hands of the restaurant industry. This marks the beginning of sustained worker action, demanding accountability and resolution not only at Noma but across the world. For over 2 decades, the culture surrounding René Redzepi and Noma has been celebrated without confronting the true harm countless workers have experienced behind the curtains. Beneath the glamour and stars, workers being pushed beyond their limits, workers being punched and choked, workers being humiliated, and dreams being broken. I witnessed intimidation, a culture designed to extract everything from many people and discard that as they break. Young interns working 16 hours for nothing while being abused and paying cash in hand for housing. When I spoke about what I witnessed, hundreds came forward. The New York Times published over 30 testimonies, but there are many more still too afraid to speak publicly because their livelihoods depend on this tightly connected industry. What I found is systematic abuse built into the structure of fine dining. This isn't just a Noma problem. Low wages and these abusive practices exist at every level of this industry. From fine dining to neighborhood restaurants, workers experience the same culture: intimidation, abuse, no power to push back. I watched people stay in an abusive environment because they had no other choice. They needed the paycheck. They wanted the reference. They feared blacklisting and deportation. They feared what would happen if they spoke up in the industry where an act of bravery can destroy your career. That trap is what kept the abuse alive. Noma built their operation on unpaid labor, and when workers tried to speak up about the conditions, the HR department was his mother-in-law. There was no recourse, only deception. The system was designed to protect Noma, not to protect workers. That's the model. That's what creates an environment where violence is possible. My website, nomaabuse.com, has over 50 testimonies, but there are countless more around the world. People who experience physical violence, psychological destruction, people whose bodies and minds were broken by this system. We're presenting this letter with demands for accountability, real accountability, leadership change, systemic reform, reparations for workers, and protection so that this never happens again. We are giving René 24 hours to sit with us and begin dialogue. If he denies us, we will escalate with daily actions, pressure, and campaigns. Resistance costs more than reform. But if René Redzepi takes this seriously, Noma can help bring the change that proves accountability is possible. Change that reshapes the industry. But the bigger question is, are we willing to keep accepting a system that breaks people just to maintain the illusion of greatness? Or are we going to build something different? What happens here matters. This sends a signal across the entire industry that this is possible. This is what change looks like. That's not just about Noma. That's about reshaping how restaurant industries operate globally. That's about telling every chef, every owner, you have a choice. You can keep the old system, or you can be part of building something new. Workers around the world are standing together, and we're not stopping until the industry transforms. I will not be quiet when our voices and efforts can help heal our industry.
Those were Jason's opening remarks. Now you're about to hear the press conference in its entirety. Jason answers most of the questions, but the other voice you hear chiming in from time to time is the voice of the president of One Fair Wage, Saru Jayaraman. The first question was on whether the system of Michelin stars enables systematic abuse at restaurants. Here's Jason's answer, and then you'll hear the full press conference.
Systems actually enable abuse. But eventually it's been expanding a lot because they go into different regions, different countries, different states, offering the ability for people to have those stars. Oh, one thing that people don't understand in the background is a tourism department or a private agency or a really rich person could just pay Michelin to then come to their region, right? And whenever they do that, they have to occupy spaces within that region. So the integrity of how they're actually including stars in their systems are rushed at best. So that way they could have stars in a new region. I see this as an opportunity to challenge the Michelin because they're actually laying foundational work and how ethics could be involved in their selection process, but instead they're doing it to gain money off of people with it. And also in those conditions where they're not actually checking having valid ethics policies, people are at risk. So They're not involved in ethics of what they might tell you if you ask them to do something about it, but things are going to change.
Can I add to that? I just want to say that it has been, sorry, this system of abuse, and Renee, again, this is not the exception. He's not a bad apple. This is the rule. And what we have to understand about this industry is they do not tolerate people like Renee. The Michelin system and the culture in our industry celebrates this kind of crazy behavior where a chef is a genius and therefore allowed to get away with screaming and shouting and punching. Look at Gordon Ramsay and the way he behaves. This is celebrated, and it should not be. It should be diminished. It should be demolished. It should be abolished. And so what we want to uplift is sane, healthy, sustainable, thrivable conditions and treatment of workers. That is not something that Michelin or the general culture of our industry perpetuates.
How does it make you feel that prominent restaurateurs have openly praised Renee's response to the New York Times article?
I think it reinforces my statement because that's how trauma and cycles of abuse are carried through our industry. You know, like these people, some of them have been abused themselves. They've been at Noma, they've been put in conditions that weren't always just physical. Sometimes it was being exposed to physical violence or exploitation. And because of those conditions, it makes things confusing and it muddies the water. It also goes to show how strong and twisted the system is when it comes to being brave and standing up against the things that you've witnessed and seen. Sometimes it's better for you to take the low road and stand by abusers than it is for you to stand on your own. It's exploiting trust and opportunity because these people are going to these restaurants because they want to have something on their resume. They're not going because they expect to see terror and drama. When they leave, what are they supposed to tell their family? How are they supposed to admit this to the public whenever they speak up about it? Their bravery is seen as weakness.
Jason, what do you make of Renee's apology through social media?
It's damage control at best. He literally physically assaulted and punched women in the ribs. Like, if you read the New York Times article, if you read my post, if you look at the cooperating witnesses that have stepped up about this, we can talk about a lot of things, but he has not talked about his extreme violence. We're forcing this hand to do so. And we will not accept damage control, magical PR attempts to hide the truth of what he's done to me and my peers.
Will there be a lawsuit?
Stay tuned.
Jason, how long did you work there and how often would you interact with him? And was this type of behavior a daily occurrence?
So I started at Noma in 2017. But I had two different positions at Noma. My first position at Noma was head of research and development in the fermentation lab and production. So a lot of my times during my first era of Noma was opening the restaurant Noma 2.0 in Copenhagen and also managing metric tons of different products in production, right? So my exposure to Noma at that time in my career with Noma was the test kitchen, which has some of the most some of the people who experienced the most trauma and abuse at Noma, but a lot of the things that we were doing at the time was opening a restaurant, and I was a little bit distracted at the time, like what exactly was the nature of what was going on at Noma. But then when I became the director of fermentation at Noma, I was more involved with some of the daily operations, some of the high level management meetings, and also I had a bigger voice in the restaurant to actually see how the different things are organized. And in that situation, whenever I experienced firsthand extreme abuse and negligence and exploitation from the insides.
How long of a time were you?
So that was 5 years total, roughly. It was like 4.5 years.
And over that 4.5 years,
It was split all within half to those two positions.
I know that you say stay tuned for a lawsuit, but with these years of allegations, why haven't you brought a lawsuit?
Well, it's complicated, right? Because the culture of fear had been really implemented at Noma, and many people are barely starting to come forward right now. And this powerful moment when we're talking to press, we're standing in the streets with statements, somebody from the restaurant is speaking in this microphone and looking at you and giving you these answers, that creates the bravery inside of some of these ex-employees to stand up and actually want to be a part of some kind of class action lawsuit. I wanted to be very, 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 very considerate and compassionate about how I'm engaging with these victims of Noma's violence. I want to make sure they have a comfortable place so they can speak up honestly without having to be coerced into statements. This is the beginning of something huge. I'm not telling you stay tuned because I want to be mysterious. I'm telling you because you're witnessing history in motion.
And some of these allegations are criminal. So is there any plan to go to the police?
I mean, so they are a global restaurant who have spent most of their career, even with their pop-up identity, working in Denmark. René has been knighted by the Queen in Denmark, and he has a huge straw poll, like how the systems work in Denmark. But I'll tell you one thing right now, this movement that we've been working on right now, it actually spread across the Danish media, and people are starting to ask a lot more questions than they ever have. Not that I want to completely destroy anyone or their legacy, or I have some kind of solution to the brand that we're going to just burn this thing to the ground. I can say for sure with certainty that the power that these people hold when they're at the top is fading. And with that power fading, then we can start looking at these kinds of solutions work more confidently.
So I will say though, we have a legal department. I'm an attorney, and we've already named some of the legal allegations in the demand letter. And so if we don't get response at a sit down, then certainly our legal department will be moving forward.
When was this?
So the demand letter we just read and delivered to that listed many of the legal violations.
And let's be real here. Like, they're not on Danish soil anymore. They're in California. They're on California soil. They're in LA right now. And so they have to follow rules that they've never had to follow before. And they've also already faced with challenges that they've never been challenged with before. So I see changes coming.
Jason, what's your message to people who will be coming in there today? They're paying $1,500 for a ticket. It's still very sought after. Do you think it's unethical for people to visit?
It's unethical, and it's important for people to understand that Noma at this point is not a restaurant. It's a crime scene.
Jason, as this picks up steam, obviously some people are coming after you. What do you have to say to that? What do you have to say about that?
I mean, I'm not an activist. I am somebody who's always stood for open information sharing and community building with science. I don't really know the dynamics of what whistleblowing and what activism really means as far as the side effects of it. But I do have some OGs in my life and some older activists who have stepped forward to give me advice. And I can say wholeheartedly that even though it kind of breaks my heart a little bit to see people wanting to tear down somebody who's starting a movement for change and for wellness across our industry, I do understand that it comes with the territory. I don't think you have to be a saint to stand against violence and abuse, but at the same time, I'm navigating through it as best as possible. I'm not just dealing with like Los Angeles or United States. Like, I have people from little villages all over the world to the best restaurants in the world, to restaurant workers and people non-industry, like literally on every continent right now, communicating with me, seeking some kind of comfort and having a voice, talking about healing. And that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the system changing and people being healed.
But we do want all restaurant workers in the United States to know that they have rights regardless of their immigration status. They have the right to be paid. They have the right to be able to speak up without retaliation. These are all rights that all restaurant workers have, and our legal department at One Fair Wage can respond to any workers who are hopefully inspired by Jason to come forward confidentially, anonymously, safely. We can represent them.
I would also like to say one more thing to you. We've been very clear about the type of violence and extreme working conditions that have existed at Noma. People being lined up in the Danish winter and punched in the ribs. You know, women being punched, like people being choked while he throws his daughter to the ground, like all kinds of terrorizing acts of violence that you can imagine. And if people choose to step over that to come at me, I'm ready. But either way, there's going to be a rude awakening.
How did you move forward? Well, how do you feel about the basic premise of charging $1,500 for a Mexican dinner?
I think it's tone deaf. I think it shows also René's pompous approach to dealing with the public, and also like his lack of awareness of what's actually going down in a place that he says that he's falling in love with, which is Los Angeles. If he would pay attention to like the fine details of what's going on in the community here, what's going on with the activists here in Los Angeles, with the people who suffered from the fires, with all the people who are being forcefully pulled from their homes and deported, then I think he would have made decisions differently. To me, it's a statement that he doesn't care about people. He only cares about game, and he only cares about being more and more famous so that he can have a bigger stronghold into your pockets.
Jason, how did your relationship with René sort of deteriorate?
Well, while I was in Noma, I experienced a active extreme neglect. I posted about it popped out on a feed before involving an intern burning her face. Whenever I stood up to that, my dynamic with René changed a lot because he knew that I was one of the first employees in Noma history that's never cited NDA. He knew that I was one of the only employees who was involved in a very high-level management meetings with only 2 other people, including the CFO and himself. He knew that I was somebody who wasn't necessarily a chef. I'm just some dude who was a scientist who was creative enough to get a place in Noma. He knew I saw things that other people didn't. And so our relationship fell apart as I was leaving Noma, and my relationship with Noma fell apart because who they showed you they really are.
Jason, how would you describe the response to response?
I mean, I can't answer that wholeheartedly because I'm still figuring it out, but I would say people are not happy with René being here for the most part. I mean, the guests who are coming on these lists, does anyone know anybody who's actually dining here? You might know a food writer or maybe a rich person or some kind of food elite, but for the most part, we're not really seeing the average person here. I think the same thing that I said about him being tone deaf is something that a lot of people in Los Angeles are feeling. And I can tell you one thing right now, he knows it too. Whatever he said that his restaurant was sold out in 60 seconds, somebody who's known the way René works with his PR approaches, to me, that's saying trying to say, I know LA's pissed, but our flick is sold out. He was never sold out. Like, if you really look at the fine details, American Express, Resi, Blackbird, all these luxury dinner programs that have supported him, bought out the restaurant seating and gave him huge amounts of funding. And there were still open seats available, and all the evidence is there. So to me, that was another example of his extreme measures to have cannabis control.
Jason, what would accountability look like for you and for other former employees here?
I mean, yeah. Should we read the demands? Fully?
Maybe somewhere.
Well, I mean, I talked about it a little bit already in the demand letters I have. I think one of the things that needs to happen for sure is that René needs to completely step down from the organization and all business associations with Noma, so that way the restaurant itself can have an opportunity to regrow and restructure itself without the influence of a terrorizing chef like René. I think that he needs to consider that the violence and extreme natures of the conditions of restaurant Noma in the past still matter, and he needs to provide reparations for the people who suffered, to the people who have PTSD, and the victims of the crimes in Noma. Those are a few examples.
Jason, I was just going to ask, these sort of top 1% restaurants, top 0.1%, can they exist without, the free labor and the chef being lionized as this? The genius of seeing a Gordon Ramsay, plenty of examples from London. Can these be the very top restaurants exist without that?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're looking at an example of how it can exist unrealistically, right? If I gave anybody here 100 interns, they could probably get 3 Michelin stars, right? What we're seeing is not authentic. What we're seeing is not realistic. What we're seeing is not attainable for people that don't have the measures to do that without exploiting work. So there's a lot of ground level restaurants out there right now who are doing very well for themselves. They're creative, their food is delicious, and they're doing just fine. But because of restaurants like Noma that how they sell themselves because of their PR campaigns and exploitation of workers, the example, the people at the top are confusing what's actually real or not.
Jason, do you know how recent this abuse was?
Yeah, I mean, I have abuse statements all the way as far as like a year and a half ago, right? And he's been open for over 20 years. And I have something far back as 20 years ago. So this is something that continued consistently for over 20 years. And now he has some excuses on his website where he's saying that he paying people more. So why are we allowing the person who abused people for 20 years to tell us how much we're worth? He didn't care about the human cost of getting himself up 3 Michelin stars. He didn't care about the human cost of him getting on the world's 50 best list, #1 5 times. He did anything he could to exhaust the people around him to get there. So he does not need to be telling us how much we need to make.
Yeah, and I do want to say to the free labor question, that is not just Noma. Please, let's understand this is pervasive across the industry and not just fine dining. Free labor and the lowest cost labor in the United States exists in this industry. And so it is free labor that we, of any kind, free or incredibly low cost labor, to answer your question, that is unsustainable, which is why we're demanding $30 here in Los Angeles and $25 anywhere in the United States of America.
Yeah, and I mean, I know how Noma works, like I understand, I've been there. Right now, all the PR that they've been doing at the beginning stage of this whole LA Papa is like the test kitchen and the most revered people in the tightest circle of Noma. They make more money than the chef Parkees. They have a bigger history of like contributing to the cycle of violence in Noma. They're protected, they're obedient, and they don't have the ability to stand up against Rene because he has them deeply under their wing. So the other employees, the chef de parties, who are below the test kitchen people, they make less money. They also were making less money in a place like Denmark where there's 50% tax at times. So not only are you only making 25,000 kroners a month, but you're also getting taxes taken out at upwards of like high 40%. So these people are accepting it because of the side effects of the prestige, but we're not being educated about true value.
Did you leave the industry after leaving Noma? Does it impact you in that way?
When I left Noma, it was a very difficult time for me on many different levels. I had to do a lot of soul-searching. I was in therapy. I was in magnetic cranial stimulation, and I had therapists, and I had a lot of things that I had to do to kind of figure out my position in it all. I eventually realized that it was important for me to step away from the industry, but not completely. So when I left Noma, I went on a global innovation tour, or a global community innovation tour, where I basically traveled the world for 3 years, 2 countries a month sometimes, teaching underprivileged people, reinforcing these traditions in tribal communities all around the world, working with colleges in like rural areas of India to Malta to everywhere you can imagine across Asia. Working with restaurants that had invited to be great people to build fermentation programs so that they can teach the communities around them. Working on community innovation spaces through design and implementation of programs. And that was this way that I was able to kind of step away from social media and prestige and all the confusing things about the Michelin guy, but still get something back to the community. My identity for a long time was like the cool guy who was at the high level of like a restaurant. And like he was, in some capacities, it was awesome to be from somebody who comes from nothing. Like, my family grew up, my mom cleaned toilets. She was a single mother. I grew up in a single wide trailer with like 7 people living inside of it on food stamps. And I went from that to running the best restaurant in Bird Lab and one of the best restaurants in the world. You know what I mean? But there's a cost that nobody talks about to get there. And when I left, I wanted to give and not take. And so I thought I went on my tour. And that's actually how all of this started. While I was on tour, I ran into victims of restaurants. I ran into victims in Noma, and they asked to push me to stand up and say something.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to our guests for making the time for us. As always, we'll be back with another epic episode next week, but if you're looking for me in the meantime, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Thread, YouTube, even our website at the LA Countdown. You can also find us on Instagram at It's Acquired Taste and at acquiredtastemedia.com. If you like what you heard here today, dear listener, please consider going to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating or review, even a follow. That really helps us. It means the world to us. Thank you so much in advance. Before we wrap, a quick reminder that this episode was brought to you by our friends at mva.wine. If you want to learn more, go back and listen to episode 167 of this podcast dated February 27th of 2026, where I sat down with the founders. They really give you a look inside why this is a special place to find and drink your wine. If you want to discover some truly incredible wines you won't find at stores, check them out at mva.wine/subscribe and use code LAFood for $50 off your first collection. And remember, that offer is only for the first 20 listeners. Let's drink together, dear listener. Enjoy.